What's up, guys? And welcome back to the Racing Roundtable. Or if it's your first time, welcome. Make yourself at home. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe for Formula One content analysis, reactions, chats. Today's video is about the 2026 Chinese Grand Prix. And before I get into the meat of the video, let me know your thoughts about the race. What rating would you give it? Who impressed you? Who disappointed you? Did you enjoy the battles? So on and so forth. Let me know your thoughts about this race, or any sort of maybe video suggestions that you may have that you think some people don't really talk about too much. But yeah, let's get into the video, and let's start with before the race. As we all know, McLaren did not start the race. Both McLarens did not start the race, which is quite shocking. I don't remember the last time this happened to a team who had a double DNS. Obviously, double DNFs happen. We've seen that quite a few times. It's not common, but you've seen it enough to know that, this is not an exceptional circumstance. This, for me, I don't remember the last time a team had a double DNS. I wonder if the last time it happened, I wonder if it was McLaren when they were with Honda, like 2015 to 2017. I wonder if it was them, which would be quite ironic. But yeah, this was a shocking situation. And it's made even worse by the fact that they didn't know what the issues were, and both issues were unrelated to each other. So Piastri had one issue, Norris had another issue, and they didn't know what was wrong, so therefore they couldn't really fix it. So both drivers did not get to start the race. And Piastri is even worse for him because he crashed down the formation lap, or not the formation lap, the reconnaissance lap in Australia in his home Grand Prix. And then he comes to China hoping to, let's start my season, let's get it back on track, let's get this championship on the road. And he doesn't start the race. This time it wasn't his fault. So that's unfortunate for both, and very damaging for McLaren because they've already had issues with Mercedes. They feel like Mercedes isn't really being open about how to extract the best out of the power unit. Which, you're a customer team. You shouldn't expect Mercedes to give you everything. You need to try and sort things out yourself, because at the end of the day, you're a customer. But then you have this issue, which is electrical, I assume, power unit problems. So that would be something that Mercedes would need to keep an eye out on and try and investigate. But yeah, very bad. And it's bad for the championship too, because that's points that you've lost. And if you're trying to finish as high as possible, which I think for this season McLaren should aim for third, this is not good for you. But again, it was so it's been a write-off of a weekend for McLaren. They got some points from the sprint, but they're lucky that Red Bull didn't really do much better either. So it wasn't as damaging as it could have been. But again, at a foundational level, it's still damaging. Both drivers did not start the race, missed out on data, missed out on points, missed out on the chance to, kick-start your season. So, yeah, very disappointing for McLaren. And I think Bortoleto and Albon also didn't start the race. So 3 of the cars that didn't start the race were Mercedes customers, which is not good. And Audi, they've had issues. I think did Hulkenberg start in Australia? I can't remember. But they've had issues as well. So they have some gremlins they need to sort out over at Audi. But yeah, really not good for McLaren at all. So then we get into the start of the race. Of course, we're not surprised. We were all expecting it. Ferrari had a great start. Both drivers had a great start. So great, in fact, that momentarily, as you can see in this image, they were running 1 and 2. Leclerc didn't manage to quite get the move done and stay in second ahead of Antonelli, but Lewis did. And before the race, I was expecting Lewis to, at some point, reach first place on the first lap. If it wasn't at the very beginning, at least maybe towards the end. Because, again, Lewis is good at starts for the most part. The Ferrari power unit, regarding the turbo size being smaller than the others, allows them to have these starts as well as whatever else they're doing with the power unit at the starts. And then also starting on the clean side of the grid. That's the triple threat, the triple combo, the triple entendre. Like, he was pretty much guaranteed to get into first place into turn 1. But yeah, and then you can see, I believe that's Gasly in 5th place as well. So he had a decent start as well. And then we go to just before the long straight on the first lap, and Hadjar spinning, almost taking out Behrman. These two had a little scrap just before this happened as well. And Hadjar ended up finishing, I think, 8th, and he could have potentially finished a bit higher if it wasn't for this, because I'm pretty sure he had to do a pit stop because his tyres at this point were probably screwed. and Behrman ended up finishing 5th, but luckily he did not get collected by Hadjar, because then this performance that he had and result he had wouldn't have happened. If Hadjar spun a bit quicker, or Behrman didn't react as quick, or was just a bit unlucky, he doesn't get 5th place and misses out on those crucial, valuable, impressive points. But yeah, and then I go to the next slide, sticking with Red Bull. Verstappen had a crap start. Yeah, he's been making comments about these regulations since pre-season, and he's continued with these comments, and it's poor. You're a 4-time world champion and you can't get these starts right, He's channeling his inner Mark Webber, because back in the day when they had a double clutch system for the race starts, Webber would struggle a lot. Like he was not famed for his great starts, Mark Webber, when he was at Red Bull. So that's what this reminds me of. Because I think in Australia as well, he didn't have a good start. So either the Red Bull power unit has an issue, or Max is not doing what he needs to be doing at the race starts. Either way, Red Bull had a poor weekend and they need to sort things out, because it's all good and dandy saying, these regulations are poor, I don't like them, they're not enjoyable. Everyone else, okay, some people may be enjoying it because of the position they're in. You might not be enjoying it because of the position you're in, but you have to get your head down and help the team. And speaking of the team, it will be interesting to see whether this is a track-specific issue, where, like, in terms of the performance that they had, or if it's something that's more ingrained in the car. Because Australia, they were decent. They were challenging McLaren. Verstappen was challenging Norris. But in China, they were pretty much nowhere. They were like qualifying slower than an Alpine, a bit slower than the Haas and whatnot. Like it was not a great weekend for Red Bull at all. And for Max, it was a even more poor weekend, which I'll get into later on. And also, let me go back to this image. You can see he's behind the Aston Martin as well. That's how bad his start was. Think about that for a second. And also, please like, share, comment, and subscribe. And let me know your thoughts about Max. Do you think he's going to end up leaving Red Bull? If he does leave Red Bull and invoke that clause that he has in the middle of the season, are you going to look at him a bit differently? Because he'll be jumping ship right when Red Bull might need him the most, Then I go back to the spin Hadjar had, and you can see Behrman's perspective and how close it was to him and having his race ended and not having that 5th place finish that he had. So we go to lap 2, and the inevitable happened, where Kimi Antonelli, the Mercedes, has much more pace on the straights, overtaking Lewis with plenty of space to go down the straight. And even by lap 2, you can see on the left-hand side, the timing tower, Russell was 3 seconds, well, not Russell, Lewis, or Antonelli now, 3 seconds clear of Gasly in a space of 2 laps. And that's including them, fighting in dirty and whatnot. Like, that's wild. That's absolutely crazy. And something I've noticed is the Ferrari can hang with the Mercedes for maybe 4, 5, 6 laps. But after that, it just can't. And I'm wondering if the overtake mode is something to do with that. But also, on top of that, the Mercedes is much faster on a straight than the Ferrari, than anything else. So Mercedes are going to be able to put on a bit more downforce, want a bit more drag, to have that performance in the corners. And then for Ferrari, it's going to be the opposite, where they're going to have to take down or take away some downforce to compete on the straights with Mercedes, which will hurt them in the corners. And if they're trying to catch the Mercedes or stay with the Mercedes, they're going to be hurting the tires more than Mercedes, because they're running less downforce, whereas Mercedes have that downforce there because they have the power unit to compensate for that, so they can look after the tires. And that's something I've also noticed. Mercedes seems to have better tire wear than the Ferraris. So whether that's down to them being able to add a bit more downforce because of their power unit advantage, or whether it's because maybe the Ferrari inherently is not a good tire preserver, remains to be seen. But it could be the case that Ferrari doesn't have a car that's managing the tires well, or it's just that they're having to compensate for the lack of power down the straights. But either way, Antonelli got the move done, and then Russell got the move done on Leclerc. So the sort of inevitable Mercedes move happened, and then Russell got Lewis as well on lap 4. So yeah, it seems to me, 2 races in, Mercedes are in a league of their own for the most part. Then it's Ferrari in a league of their own. Everyone else pretty much. McLaren, Red Bull, then everyone else. But it's weird because the Ferrari can sort of hang with Mercedes. So the Ferrari are closer to Mercedes than, I guess, the others are closer to Ferrari, if that makes sense. I know McLaren can challenge Ferrari in some aspects. I think in the sprint they were able to sort of challenge Ferrari. I think in Australia they were also able to challenge Ferrari pace wise, but in the race I think these two are just clear of everyone else. And then the customary Aston Martin retirement happened. I don't know what was wrong with Stroll, that Stroll's car that meant he had to retire. We can only assume it's a Honda power unit failure. And also later on, Alonso had to end up retiring because of his hands were feeling numb. So driver safety issue. And speaking of safety and the FIA and how they're, safety first, I'm surprised they haven't, stopped Aston Martin from running or imposed restrictions on them, because Alonso is having to wave his hands around and move his fingers and wiggle his fingers to get some feeling back into them. Like, that's an insane situation. I wouldn't be surprised if it's the first time that a driver's having to go through potential nerve damage or numbness because of excess vibrations. I can even see it on the TV cameras as well. It's wild. It's a wild situation. Absolutely crazy situation and embarrassing. So, yeah, and this caused the safety car, and both teams, Ferrari and Mercedes, double stacked, and they were good to go for the restart. Accidentally clear Colin Pitto in second, who had a good race, Ocon in third, who had a bad race, and then Lewis was, like I mentioned before, overtaken by Russell, but he was able to overtake Russell on the restart because he locked up, I think, and got distracted by the Ocon-Colin Pitto battle. Lewis took advantage and chased after Antonelli. But then later on, Antonelli, he went clear. Lewis was trying to hang with him, but he was cooking his tyres, and that allowed Leclerc to gain on him and get this move done. But then later on, Lewis managed to try and fight back around the outside of turn 1, but it wasn't meant to be. He was trying his hardest to, stick with Leclerc, and then he overtook Leclerc at the end of the straight a couple of laps later. All the while, Russell is right behind these guys, not really able to make an impression, and Antonelli's pulling ahead. Like, he's gone. These guys are now fighting for the podium positions. But it was good to see them battle. It was really good to see the Ferraris battle, Ferrari allowing them to race. But I do wonder if it would have been smarter to let the Ferrari drivers work as a team and not battle, to keep Russell behind, and then both of your drivers are on the podium. I wonder if that would have been a smart thing to do, a fair thing to do. But yeah, I mean, at least we got great entertainment out of it, because look, at some point they did touch as well around turn 1, but you can see how close they were to each other when they were battling, and Lewis being daring, and you wouldn't typically see a move around this corner in sector 2 because, dirty air, especially because of the last regulations. It was also surprising because Leclerc here has overtake mode. Lewis didn't, and I'm surprised Lewis had a much better exit than Leclerc and was able to at least put his car aside or alongside his teammate, which was very interesting as well. But yeah, you wouldn't see this kind of racing in the last regulations, or at least in the last few years of the regulations. So again, bravo to the two Ferrari drivers, bravo to Ferrari for allowing them to race, and it was some of the best racing I've seen in quite a while. It's not dive bomb ahead of the apex sort of racing. This was pure racing. 2 cars, 2 elite drivers battling for second place, not even first place, for second place. Insane. And obviously the battling allowed Russell to try and have a look at overtaking each of the guys, but which he eventually did. And from then on, Russell was pretty much gone. Once the Mercedes are ahead and they have that cleaner, like, they're gone. You can't really do much about it, especially if you've cooked your tires trying to battle your teammate. Like, it's not going to happen. Then we get to Ocon. Ocon. People for about a year have been saying Ocon shouldn't be in F1 anymore. He's not going to do much. He's not going to impress much. He's not going to improve much. He's not World Championship material. He's not going to get into a top team. But I always thought, Ocon is a decent driver. Like, I still think he deserves to be in Formula 1. I don't see why people are saying this about him. But with the way Behrman has been performing since he joined Haas, and the way he got a great result in China, whereas Ocon, his teammate, is just crashing into other people, acknowledging it was his fault, going for a move that shouldn't have been on, and forcing it, and crashed into Colapinto, who I think just came out of the pits and sort of, almost ruined his race. Yeah, it's not good. It's not looking good for Ocon. If Behrman continues to perform how he is and Ocon isn't going to improve and at least make an impression, then it's looking peak. I don't think Haas would get rid of him because he has the experience, and you want to balance the experience with that young potential talent like they are now, especially with a team like Haas. I do think his future would be in jeopardy if maybe next season Haas decide to go for someone else, and I don't think any other team would go for him as well. So it's looking like crunch time for Ocon. He needs to make an impression on Behrman and try and find some pace from somewhere, some performance, some consistency from somewhere. And then we go back to the Ferraris battling, and they did do some overtake mode games where, like Leclerc, funny he's involved again, and Verstappen and Jeddah 2022 were trying to outbrake each other. Well, not outbrake each other, but trying to brake early so that the other would cross the DRS detection line first so that they would have DRS. And that's pretty much what was happening here. Leclerc did it earlier when Russell was behind both drivers, and I think here Lewis was trying to do it as well, but Leclerc caught onto it. And I think Leclerc even did it in Bahrain as well. He allowed Max to overtake him into turn 1 just before the detection zone so he could get straight back at Max. So yeah, I mean, if Leclerc has been doing it since 2022, then there's no way you're going to catch him out. He even did it early in the race. You're not going to catch him out. So yeah, but again, the Ferrari battles were so good. So good, in fact, that Leclerc was like, I'm enjoying this battle, and his engineer was saying he's glad. So it's good. I thought Leclerc would have gone on the radio to complain about some moves or why are we doing this? We're losing time. But I think since Mercedes are so far ahead, it's so quick, you can't really do much. Team orders aren't really going to do much in terms of the race result. It's just down to you to try and get third place from your 7-time world champion teammate. And speaking of world champions, Verstappen retired the car, a DNF for him. I think it's his worst start to a season since his 2015 rookie season at Toro Rosso. So once again, I'm going to ask the question. If Max decides to invoke that clause that allows him to leave at the end of the season, if he doesn't, or if he isn't in a certain position in the championship, if he decides to invoke that clause and leave, would you have a gripe against him? Because now that the Red Bull seems to be struggling or is not at the top end of the grid, he's now leaving a championship when he said he wants to be there forever. Would you blame him, or do you think that you're jumping at the first opportunity or the first sign of struggle for your team, and you're gonna go and glory hunt and join Mercedes if possible, and leave the team in the dust? Or do you think he's a 4-time world champion, he has the right to go wherever he wants? Because I'm not gonna lie, if Lewis had done the same thing, I feel like people would get on to Lewis, because they already got onto Lewis for even joining McLaren and having a world championship capable car when he's been in the McLaren academy before. Ron Dennis knew about him for years. He's been trained by McLaren and whatnot, and he showed the talent to drive for McLaren, and he almost won the world championship. But people get onto him for, he's always had the fastest car and blah, blah, blah. And Max's fans saying last year that he had a tractor and that he had the 5th fastest car and stuff like that. But the Red Bull was like the 2nd fastest car over the balance of the season. Towards the end of the season, it was faster than the McLaren as well. But on the balance of the season, it was the 2nd fastest. So he didn't have a tractor. He didn't have the 5th fastest car over the course of the season. And I've heard his fans say that he can drive a Haas and win races and get pole and whatnot. You can only achieve what the car can achieve. Now, some drivers don't reach the maximum potential of the car, whereas some do. And there's no way this Red Bull or Haas or Williams back in like 2020 or whatever could get pole position with someone like Max Verstappen at the wheel, because it's not physically possible. Physics prevents a car from doing that. So you can only drive to the maximum potential of the car. It's down to the driver to extract that potential. Now, are some cars more difficult to extract that than others? Sure. This Red Bull is faster than a Haas. Doesn't mean that Max would get pole position in a Haas. My point is that you cannot you cannot overstate a driver's input into, the results they get, because Formula One is an engineering sport. The car plays as much a role as the driver does. So that's basically like a mini run at some Max fans who say that he's just he's a god. He drives, so he's the best driver in the world. I'm not disputing that, but to say that he can put a Haas on pole is crazy work. But I am interested to see his character. Does he have the character to stick with this team? Does he have the character to not blame this team and finger point? Does he have the character to work 10 times harder to try and get these guys back to the top? That's what I want to see. That's what I'm interested in. Then we get to Antonelli winning the race. And what a performance by Antonelli. For that to be a first race win, where you dominate, you win from pole, you don't get overtaken during the race, apart from turn 1 on lap 1. From then on, you basically dominated. Like, that's insane. For your first win at 19 years old for Mercedes, great performance by Mercedes, excluding the reliability issues George had during qualifying, which again, that could be a weak point for Mercedes, that some reliability issues come up, because we've seen it for the customer teams. I think for every customer team, they've had a reliability issue of some sort, and then obviously George had that glitch. Ferrari's best chance could be, Mercedes' reliability issues. But then again, Japan's the next race, and the Ferrari does seem to have the better car. The Mercedes is a good car, but the power unit is just much, much better than anyone else. But the Ferrari does seem to have the better car. So it would be interesting to see how it performs on pace compared to the Mercedes, because Suzuka is a high, medium speed circuit. So it'll be very interesting to see how they fare. But yeah, great performance by Antonelli. And let's see if this is going to be a platform for him to challenge George now. Can he challenge for a World Championship? Let me know your thoughts about that. In my opinion, I don't think so. I think he's too young, because George is pretty much in his peak right now. And I think if it wasn't for that qualifying issue, he may have had that opportunity to properly go for pole and not have that worry about reliability issues in the back of his head. And you can see how happy he is. And first time on the top step of the podium. The podium announcer calling him Kimi Raikkonen. I don't know. Yeah, Raikkonen hasn't even been in F1 since 2021. So damn good performance by Kimi Antonelli. Shout out to him. So let's go through the top 10. Antonelli first, Russell second, 5.5 seconds behind. Hamilton and Leclerc in third and fourth, 25 and 28 seconds behind. Without them battling, maybe they would have finished 15, 18 seconds behind Mercedes. But yeah, look at the gap. It's just complete domination. Berman in fifth, 57 seconds behind Antonelli. Gasly sixth, Lawson seventh. Great performance by him, considering Race Balls also struggled, I think, during the weekend. And also back to Gasly. Great performance by him. Berman, great performance by him. Hajar 8th, good recovery considering his first lap spin. Sainz in 9th, which was surprising. The Williams has not got that much pace. It's overweight. They're struggling. But to get 9th place is a good achievement for him. And Colapinto, 10th place, 1 point, his first point for Alpine. So good result for him. Good performance, considering he got taken out by Ocon. And I mean, yeah, you can see the gaps here. 9th place was lapped. Hajar was almost lapped. You have the Mercedes by themselves, Ferrari by themselves, and then everyone else. Haas, or Berman, Gasly within 2 seconds of each other. Lawson, Hajar within 7 seconds of each other. And then Sainz and Colapinto, everyone else lapped. So we go to the Drivers' Championship. George Russell still in the lead, 4 points clear of Antonelli. Leclerc and Hamilton in third and fourth, within 1 point of each other. Berman in 5th place with 17 points for Haas. He goes above Lando Norris. Verstappen down in 8th. Again, I think it's his worst start since 2015. And we go to the Constructors' Championship. Mercedes and Ferrari clear of everyone else. Like, this is insane. Mercedes are 31 points clear of Ferrari. Ferrari are 49 points clear of McLaren. That double DNS for McLaren is gonna sting at the end of the season. If they're able to develop the car, add some performance to challenge Ferrari, and let's say they're in a scrap for second place, that double DNS might hurt them big time. Red Bull behind Haas now, with Haas in 4th with 17 points, Red Bull 5th with 12 points, level on points with Racing Bulls, their sister team, who are in 6th. Alpine with that great double points finish, which I think is the first double points finish in over a year, in 7th with 10. Audi in 8th with 2 points. Williams in 9th with 2 points. Audi didn't score any points. Sainz with that points finish moves them level with Audi. Cadillac and Aston Martin, 0 points. Cadillac are really, really far behind pace-wise. So they really need to add some performance to that car, because if it wasn't for Aston Martin being as crap as they are, Cadillac would be like a back marker, far and away as a back marker. But yeah, constructors are pretty much wrapped up. Unless a miracle happens, Ferrari pretty much have second place wrapped up, unless McLaren and or Red Bull manage to add some pace to their cars. But yeah, shout out to Haas, shout out to Behrman, shout out to Gasly for their results. And we go to the driver of the day. Biggest shout out to Kimi Antonelli, 19 years old, first race win, dominant win, kept his head cool. Other than that lockup, he had a great performance all weekend pretty much, especially Saturday and Sunday. So shout out to him. And my final rating for the race is 8.5 out of 10. Damn good race. There was some action before the race and after and during the race. The Ferrari's batting was the biggest highlight. That was high quality racing. Like I said, none of that ahead of the apex, dive bomb, forcing off the track, bull crap. Pure racing, wheel to wheel combat. 2 elite drivers at a team which is clear of everyone else but behind the leaders, allowing them to race. Beautiful entertainment. 8.5 out of 10 for the 2026 Chinese Grand Prix. Please let me know your thoughts about the race. Did you enjoy the race? What are your thoughts about people calling the racing artificial? Do you think it's fair? Do you think it's the new norm? Do you think that major changes or minor changes need to be made to the regulations? Maybe, for example, making the combustion engine and battery power split maybe 60-40 or 55-45. Do you think that these cars are some of the best cars that we've had in Formula 1 for a while? Because, again, the racing is great. Drivers are able to follow. They're able to, like the Ferrari showed, battle wheel to wheel and take different lines and stuff. So, yeah. But yeah, just give me your thoughts. Like, share, comment, subscribe. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video. Goodbye.